So this one speaker is missing. Marcus, are you there somewhere?
Marcus will join in a minute.
Okay, cool. Yes, I think we have a Chrome. I think hopefully Marcus will join later. So Matt, do you have anything to start the recording, or is it all in place?
Started recording.
Okay, cool. Yeah, then I say hello to the ones who have joined already. We have kind of a short agenda. We have 3 points beside the usual overarching things. One is Vincent talking about the release management. Daisy will give an update on the license header auditing. And Marcus will talk about the load balancer changes that went in the last days. So, but let's start with the usual things. I think we have some new faces here. So this is the time to introduce yourself.
Is it Mikhail? And I see a name, maybe a face. The handle is Rud Dijermas. I don't know how to pronounce that, but there are 2 people I see that haven't been here before. Do you care to introduce yourself?
My name is Rud Dijermas. I'm a new member of the OpenWhisk or Cloud Functions team. So I probably would also come to a point where I would contribute to OpenWhisk.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like nobody else wants to speak. Michaela, you have it.
Hey, my name is Görkem. I work for Red Hat, and I usually work around developer experience of things, things like IDEs, tools, and such. I have been contributing to the DevTools repository. A few weeks back, I've been traveling for the last 2 weeks, so I missed the meetings, but now I'm back home and just wanted to join and say hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Anybody else?
No.
Okay.
So, hello, this is Matthias. I'm also a new member of the OpenWhisk team that is, well, probably contributing to OpenWhisk as well. Yeah, we're in, well, I'll probably introduce the rest of the team as well. There is a bunch of new team members here for OpenWhisk. Cloud Functions, sorry. Sorry about that. That over time will join this call and probably also contribute to the open source code.
Okay. Okay, then I think we can continue. So the usual next point on the agenda is talking about the notable changes from the last 2 weeks from the different teams. Christian, are you in the situation to cover the IBM side?
Christian just shockingly looked at me and was surprised by your inquiry. I cover that.
Sorry for that. Sorry for that.
I got the commits view open. So scrolling through it, here I am, by the way. Scrolling through it, what I see, and this is in reverse chronological order. Well, as you already mentioned, the new load balancer is in, so I'll talk about that in a second. Tyson got the Splunk back log store in, which is pretty exciting as well. Puts us in a position of experimenting with different log store backends besides CouchDB. What else do we got? Pure config, I'm happy to see is more and more of our configuration is moving to pure config. So an inquiry on everybody opening pull requests, just do everything in pure config. It's much easier than the old Whisk config, and hopefully at some point we can get rid of Whisk config at all. Notable changes as well to the triggers API. Mark, are you on the phone? Probably not. I cover that. So the triggers API did change in that it is not generating activations anymore for rules which are disabled. I think there are emails to the dev list covering all the details. Just briefly mentioning there were some changes to those. And yeah, a couple of performance improvements as well from different parties. Anybody can add stuff if I forget anything, but that was the most notable things that I have seen.
Yeah, the one thing might be worth to mention is the lock reduction is fully in, so there should be less lock written out by default. Not sure whether we covered that in the last call already. Okay, anybody else with updates? Doesn't sound so. So the next point on the agenda is Vincent. Are you ready to give the updates on the release process?
Hey, thank you, Martin. Yes, this is Vincent. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. And I will give you guys a latest update regarding the process of our release management. So I'll start to share my screen. Decide to share my desktop. Yeah. Okay. Okay, as you can see on my screen, this is latest documentation changes in the release repo. As I presented last time, we are targeting to develop two kind of modes to maintain our OpenWhisk release. One is the manual mode, and the other is the automated mode. Okay, let's start with the manual mode so far. Let's say all these steps I list over here is the basic tutorial for a release manager to follow in order to publish the artifacts. I have all the scripts. I've written all of them in Bash script, and they have been in place and ready. Folks can feel free to download this repo and try it out. Today I'm going to go one by one from the preparation to I think publish release artifact to the staging directories. I will do those kind of demos so that we can see how far we have been reached and what's the potential work item we need to finish in the future. Okay, here, as you can see, this page, this link, this is the place where we're going to upload our artifacts. As you can see, I have already put some over there, which has been used as the pilots. I'll do a demo to remove them and upload some new artifacts. Okay. Here is a REPL. As you can see, my current directory is the REPL of the OpenWhisk release. And so as we can see, the first thing, as a manager, as a release manager, after download this code, the first thing we need to configure our environment. I've tested both Mac and Ubuntu environment, so they should both work fine for these two operating systems. And the first thing, we can go into the tools folder and to install those dependencies. So the first thing is to run this script to install dependencies. Oh, I just click on that. Okay, yeah, so after that, your local environment should be well configured. And then we can do picking up the source code. So how do we do this? The process is just to edit the configuration file, which we can put on we put under the tools folder. This file is named config.json. I've listed all the important keys over here, which we have to config. Like staging URL means the URL we're going to upload all our artifacts, and release URL. What's the version number? What's the repository list we're going to release? And then how do we define those hash values, repository URL, and the branch name for each repos? So after we done this, we can run a script called download source code. So they'll pick up the exact version of the source code from the GitHub repo onto our local disk. So the second thing I'm going to do is to download the source code, which is the script, as you can see here on the screen. Download source code. So I just download them. They will, by default, they will put under your home directory. But as you can specify where the workplace is by passing this kind of parameters behind the script. Okay, after I download the script, as we see, we download those three folders, those three projects, they have been defined here in the configuration file. Actually, I use the exact same content as it shows over here. So they just pull it down, 1, 2, 3, the three repositories. We can add as many as possible in order to define how many projects, how many open projects we're going to release. Oh, so next we're going to make some release artifacts. As the first phase, we only configure the packaging the source code. So the first phase is packaging source code. Second phase will going to package the binary. A third one will package the Docker image as necessary. So the script we're going to run is package source code. So I open the terminal, run package these guys. So far, I only submit some Gradle tasks. to OpenWhisk the CLI and OpenWhisk the Whisk deploy. Still some other repos, some couple of other repos I need to work on in order to package the source code. So, but you can see the general ideas of how it works. And here we can see another folder has been created. And this guy, I created another one under it. As you can see, there were two tar files over here containing the source code of OpenWhisk, the CLI, and the OpenWhisk with the deploy. Okay, after we package them based on the policy of Apache, we had to sign them with the PGP keys. Regarding how to generate the keys, how to sign them. Since I have already get a key generated, so I can directly sign them with our private key. So I can run sign the artifacts. As we can see, what's the checksum will be generated. Type in my password, and we're going to sign all my artifacts, as you can see down over here. We generate the MD5 and one SHA 512 as the checksum, and one .asc file as the signature. So we can upload all of them into our remote staging directory after this step. Now, so after we sign it, we have to upload, make sure the public key is available, which I have already done that. This is just a simple step to export your public key and upload them onto this folder. As you can see, the key over here. I have already uploaded the public key, as you can see over here, this guy. And then, okay, I can upload the artifacts. Well, let me first try remove the existing one because I'm going to push a new candidates. Just script called remove remote stage artifacts to clean up folder over here. Okay, as you can see, the folder has been removed for that release. And next, I can run the upload artifact script. You want to put them back up. Let's see. It should be over here when I just click on the refresh. As you can see, the commit has finished. Oh, yeah. See the folder is back again, and those are the new artifacts with a checksum and signature over here. And we'll make sure that it will be well signed based on the Apache release rules. So, generally speaking, this is the sort of steps before we send out a note to the community and vote. So we have done from 1 to 7. But after we receive a consent from the community that to decide, for example, this artifacts can be released, there is a script called move from state to release to move the artifact from one SVS directory to the release directory, so that we can officially announce our release. Yes, this is that's actually how the manual mode, how the manual process works for our release management. And if our vote failed, we can always intercept into the steps from 3 to 7, which means download the new source code, and 2, publish the artifacts or staging directories, we can intercept or modify those kind of steps at any time, and then push up the new artifacts as I have demonstrated in this kind of folder, and with the script I've just run. This is the manual mode. Okay. If you as any release manager or developer who are still tired of those kind of manual steps, there's another mode we provide to alleviate your pain, which is called the automated mode of release process. You actually will the basic idea is we trigger off a Travis CI job to do these steps for us. But how do we trigger, how do we kick off the Travis CI job? By submitting PRs. But what we're going to do, the only thing we're going to do is to edit these configuration files to decide where is the stage URL, what version we're going to release, we're going to name it, what's the product list we're going to ready for the coming release, which hash number, which branch we're going to pick, those kind of things. The only thing that a release manager should be responsible for. After we edit those files, we can propose a new version of this configuration file. We just submit a PR to let this Travis guy, the Travis build, to do the package, to the download, to the upload, task like that. So when after we find the PR is ready and we decide to merge it. After we merge it, the Travis build, the push-based Travis build will act differently. It will upload the artifacts into a staging directory. And the third type of job, like tag-based Travis build, will actually move the artifacts from the staging to the release directory. But this is definitely after we vote, after our vote succeed in the community, so that we decide to release. Yeah, so that's generally speaking, that's the current status of our release management. In general, I have all the scripts developed already geared up online as a written work, as a instruction written work here. So folks, feel free to download it, try it out to see whether it goes as is described over here. So that's my update regarding release management.
That's very good, Vincent. And that the Travis will help for release managers that don't have their computer set up or they don't have a Mac, maybe they can just do it to the remote system. They can push and they can tag and drive the process. So even people with Windows. One small item, for now, since we are incubating, we're not graduated, we have to do 2 votes. So there will be like a step between 8 and 9. So we have to send a vote to the IPMC or the general incubator mailing list to get the 3 votes from somebody from the IPMC, and then we can release. But if someone like one of our mentors are already in the IPMC and they voted into the dev, in the first one, number 8 in the dev channel, in the dev mailing list, then we can reuse those binding votes. So if like Bertram or somebody, our mentors are, or somebody happens to be in the dev list and votes, then we can reuse them on the second vote, and that accelerates things. I've seen people doing that, and that's just for incubator. When we incubate after graduation, then it will look like this: we vote, we binding votes, number 8, and then publish. And I guess later we can talk about the things that we have to do for announcements, like maybe putting a blog post or
Yeah, definitely.
change log and the things that we discussed. So, but this automation is needed. If not, then there's a lot of mistakes that we have to restart over. And if a signature is missing, or we don't put it in the wrong file on the wrong folder, and so this helps a lot. So, thumbs up, +1.
Yeah, one thing that's thankful reminds from Carlos, we can already verify the let's say the keys, the signatures and the checksums. We already has script to do that for us. So like to verify local artifacts. Yeah, you can see all the text over here, which means the signature and checksum are in place and correct.
That's perfect, because that's basically what, like, for example, I would do when I'm voting, right? I would say, let me download the artifacts, let me verify that the keys are the right keys. Maybe I open it and check that the license is okay, or it includes the thing that it needs to include, and then post my votes +1. So having a tool, awesome.
Yeah, I think Daisy will introduce the how do we verify the Apache headers next.
Yeah, that's cool. That's basically what the tool will look like. Yeah,
that's exactly what we have to take care of in the release as well.
Yeah,
cool.
Okay, cool work. So I think in the agenda we can stay with the release management. As Winston said, Daisy wanted to talk about the license side auditing.
Yes.
Do we have enough time, or are we going over your agenda time?
It should work actually.
Okay, so Winston, can you stop sharing? I'm going to share. Okay, thank you. So I will share my desktop. Okay, so I create a deck, a simple deck. Just want to make sure I can explain clearly. So I'm also helping in the release process. My focus is in the licensing policies. So some background. The ASF licensing policy is very complex topic actually. I'm not a legal expert, so I can't say I 100% understand all the policies. So I just share with you my understanding. Every release must comply with the licensing policy, and it's very important to have an audit in the release process. Simply saying, based on my understanding, the auditing will check 2 items. So the first one is to check every package must have a license file and a notice file. And the second one is to check the source file submitted by the owner must contain a Apache license header. So there is a project in Apache named as Apache Creator. It's a release auditing toolset. It has 3 subprojects: Red, Tanko, and Whisker. We will Red. The Red tool is help to audit the header, and the Tankos is to help audit the license file and the notice file. And Whisker is help to assemble a whole license document for the project. Today, I will talk about the header auditing. So we will only use the Red tool. Maybe next time I can cover more on the license and the notice file auditing. So, yeah, sorry, I used the full screen. Okay, that's better. Just in order to have us on the same page, I talk a little about the header policies. So I take some screenshots and highlight some sentences. You can get the whole document from the top link. in this page, it's a basic concept for you to understand what headers you can put, what files you can put the license header and submit to Apache. So if you are the owner and you want to contribute your work, you should remove the copyright and add the license header. And this snapshot is from the Q&A part. And this policy is also applied to documentation files. And if you have a website, the website is not included in the release, you don't need to add the policy header in your website. But if your project, if the website is included in your distribution, you shall to add you shall to comply to this policy, even in the website documentation and your documentation. And this part is very important because it tells us which files in Apache release can have no headers. So it says a file without any degree of creatives can have no license header, and some other files may make sense to have no license header, and it lists 3 examples here. Some short information text file, the README file, install file, and some test data. If the additional source header will cause the test to fail, and some snipped files. And if we our PMC can have the judgment. If we can't make the decision, we can contact with the legal. And as to the audit tooling, as I said before, we use Apache Red. So Apache Red will help us to audit the header. So it's a Java tool actually. It can be used by a command line or even a Gradle plugin. I have implemented this Gradle plugin in the Whisk deploy, so you can go there to reference. If we run this tool, it will generate a report. In the report, it can tell us how many files are not have no license headers, have unapproved license headers. So here you can define a ret exclude here. If you are using command line, you can define a ret exclude file. In the file you define all the exclude files. If you are using Gradle, you define a customer build Gradle file. So I look at some sample ret excludes of the famous Apache projects. Actually, if we look at some project, let me use, maybe we use. Okay, this is a ret exclude file in Tomcat. Actually, the list is very specific. You can see it. It excludes the MD file, some manifest, some HTML, some logs, and some text. Maybe I don't know what is that. What's that? And the JSON, and the properties, and the XSD file. So, and if we look at this Tomcat project, we can see it has it's a text file actually, but it has it has Apache header. let me see. It's a build XML file. It has Apache header. And if we look at, this is a Spark ret exclude sample. So actually it defines some JavaScript, exclude some JavaScript, JSON data log, and some Python, and some Scala, some HTML, so something like that. And this is Kafka. Kafka project use the Gradle plugin, so it has a very short excluded file list here. Actually, I think these are very I mean, different projects can have different ret excludes, and it's very specific. We can define our own ret excludes. It only depends on how we think the source files have. Let's go back to the deck. So I in my work I have used this ret tool to test some project, some repo in under OpenWhisk community. So something like our main repo, API Gateway Catalog, package Kafka, and CLI. And I have submit issue to this project. In these issues, you can find a list of files that ret reported unapproved license, and I made a summarize here. And these files are the typical files without license header. And I think we can go over the list one by one, and we discuss if we want to include them in the exclude file list. If we include them, I mean, if we exclude them from the ret audit, we don't need to add header to those files. If we don't include them in the exclude list, we need to add header to these files. So I think it's just a discussion.
Yeah. So to be clear, we do run scan code on every pull request from our tooling utilities directory, scan code, and we already had a discussion last year which things we want to exclude as a project. So I'll probably have to evaluate the delta between what we want to exclude and what we've seen other projects in Apache include. I think that we also identified a problem this week that the rat tool does not recognize the minified header, which is an approved header from Apache. So that's specifically created for JavaScript and other files, which we're very sensitive to. And we want to use mini headers where possible. So we probably have to talk to Apache Infra and the tooling people to see why they don't support the mini header as well.
Okay, thank you, Matt. This topic has been discussed in the mailing list, and our mentor have his comments in his email. He said we should have a unique ret excludes for all modules, and it should have comments to clearly indicate why this file can be excluded. Because we have many different repos. And if we only provide a unique ret excludes, we may need to collect a set of files and put them together. So among these files, so which one we want to add Apache headers? How about the documentation files? Do you want to add Apache headers to the documentation files?
Right. So these are discussions we'll have to have over time. But I think we already had some discussions last year, February, about these things, so we can draw on those discussions too. I can help point to those.
Yeah, we should move that discussion to in the respect of time, we should move that discussion to the mailing list, actually. Which files to exclude? Are there any questions for that topic? Otherwise, Matt asked me to have a short addition to the agenda.
Yeah, I just want to show that. So this has always been in our Apache CWiki, and I updated it last week. I want to move this to the release repo. It's basically like a mini board for us to track how we're moving towards automated releases and indicate which repos are part of it, and kind of eventually evolve this to a board where release managers can see the status of all the repos. This is all current now. You can see we have a lot of new repos that are not automated through Travis, but I've verified all of them have, or there's an issue open, to have all the, at least the headers and the license file and stuff present. We'll have additional checklists here for change logs and notify files, things like, make sure that those are here. So basically to give a view to the release managers and move this to the release repo. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Markus, I think, would is next on the agenda with talking about the controller changes he did, the load balancer changes he did. So, yep. Please go ahead.
Unfortunately, I don't have any fancy slides, so you'll have to bear with me just talking over it. Yeah, as already said, today I think where the pull request got merged of implementing a new load balancer, which addresses some, yeah, I'd like to say many issues that the old load balancer had. I summarized them all in the pull request. Actually, I'm going to pull it up for me right now so I can look over them. But yeah, as a very basic step, it implements sharding versus the shared state model that we had before, simply because we, and when I say we, I talk about IBM, we took it all to production and had it run there, and we have seen issues with the shared state because the shared state simply isn't fast enough, which means that scheduling will introduce queuing, even if there's a lot of space in the system still. So one of the key points to address for me was to address that inconsistent state. And Tyson and me have had conversations about making the load balancer state local again, but with the shared state that has proven fairly difficult. So I investigated a whole new horizon, which is sharding. We didn't have sharding before, and we opted in this load balancer release for a concept which we call horizontal sharding versus vertical sharding, and I will explain that briefly because I think that's nothing usual in that. I don't think these are official terms, but we use them throughout, so it might be good to explain. So I speak of vertical sharding if I speak of the classic sharding. I call that vertical because in my mind, if you have an architecture chart, you have the controller, and then underneath you have several invokers. Or maybe you have two controllers and several invokers, and I call that vertical sharding if I cut the invokers pool vertically, which means that each controller gets their own dedicated smaller invoker pool, which forms the bigger pool. We speak of horizontal sharding if we cut the invokers horizontally, so each controller gets a piece of each invoker. We chose to do that because it is much easier to implement in our current model, because the invoker, the simple scheduling that the invoker does stays intact. What that means is if you have two controllers and you shard horizontally, then both controllers will, the load balancing logic stays intact. Exactly the same what we have today. So what will happen is that if controller 0 schedules something to invoker 1, and that user comes in again, and through round robin in the Nginx, it goes to controller 1 instead of controller 0, controller 1 will pick the same invoker. So eventually the warm ratio, the ratio of warm reused containers, stays the same for now. It is a bit more difficult to do that in vertical sharding, because then you'll have to cleverly pick the controller above to go to the right pool, or you'll force the user to have n cold invocations at least, where n is the amount of shards that you have in the system. So that's the reasoning why we implemented horizontal sharding first. Of course, it has caveats. The most notable being it is limited in its scalability. So today, if you have invokers with 16 slots, you can at most have 16 controllers, which might already be nonsensical. So the scale of this is very limited, and eventually we'll have to go to vertical sharding. But I think this is a good stepping stone of learning what sharding means for us, how we implement it, and everything. Actually, implementation-wise, I piggybacked on what we already had in the load balancer, which is an Akka cluster. So I use Akka cluster to still synchronize, not synchronize, the wrong word, to have all load balance being aware of each other, but I only use it to, well, update the slow data of that load balancer. And that's an important concept. There's a concept of slow data, which is, for example, how many invokers are in the system. That data is changing very, very slowly. So I can easily share that through something. But the counts that we were sharing as of today are basically per request. So each invocation request will either will increase those counts, and those will need to be shared, which I refer to as fast data, which at our performance goals, just I think there's no way that works in a scalable way. So that was the second issue. The third issue was bottlenecks. The old load balancer asked for the whole invoker state every time an invocation request came in, and that is bottlenecked by a single actor. And there are a couple of others. The algorithm isn't implemented in a scalable way. It doesn't scale. If you have a lot of invokers in your pool, it gets slower and slower and slower. And that's all stuff that you don't want. All of that is fixed in the new load balancer. And one important feature of the new load balancer is also that the state is actually consistent even locally. The slots to the invokers are implemented with semaphores. So at a very low granularity of concurrency, it is safe to say that if there is capacity in the system left, there will be no queuing on an invoker, even under a burst or under anything. That was one of the main keys to fix here as well. So I invite everybody who's interested in that work to try it out. It's implemented as an SPI. So Tyson, in the end, I even used the SPI myself. And yeah, you can try it out. I'll open the discussion on the dev list once we have that in production and tried it out, and maybe iron some of the wrinkles that might come up out, and then I open a discussion to maybe make it the standard load balancer and throw the old one out if nobody objects. I already talked briefly with Tyson about his use cases with concurrently invoked actions. I don't think this is impacted by this much because the invoker logic stays intact just stays as it is. So that should be safe as well. But if anybody has any concerns or has a use case which isn't covered by the new load balancer, please let me know. We should aim to make that good. I don't have absolute numbers for you in terms of performance, but we are the old load balancer really was a proven bottleneck, and that's gone now. So the non-blocking invoke performance is on par with the raw Kafka produced performance. So that's actually what you want there. For blocking invocations, there's still some fish to fry to find bottlenecks there, but it's a step forward. Yeah, a lot of talking. Any questions to that?
Is it feature toggle? Is it off by default in the Ansible deployment?
Yep, it is. It's not a feature toggle. It's an SPI, so it's a plugin basically. So you can choose to load that class or not. For the open source code, as I said, it's the default is still the old one, and I'll open the discussion to change that if we've gained more knowledge on the new load balancer.
We updated the markdown file, the deploy.md. That's if somebody wants to do it, just copy paste what's there.
Yeah, I think I wrote somewhere.
Yeah, I see a paragraph in the deploy.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, cool. Just for people to know, they try it and they say they don't see any differences because we didn't enable it.
Right.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it would be good at some point to have some diagrams, some blocks explaining this, Marcus.
Yeah,
form,
I realize,
or piece of paper with pen. Anything that just is kind of hard to follow.
Yeah, I agree. So in a nutshell, the most basic thing is, as it says in the paragraph, it's state sharing versus sharding. That's the most significant difference between the two load balance from an operations and behavior perspective. All other things should basically behave just about the same, just implemented in a more in a faster way. And I'm allowed to say that because I wrote the old one, so I'm allowed to say that the old one was badly implemented in terms of performance.
Okay, thank you. I have another point on the agenda. I think Pretty has some remarks on the CLI and additional the CLI. Pretty, if you could you have a short slot if you want to talk about it.
Is this regarding the target?
Yeah. Changes you enabled in the CLI this past week, the Go client.
What is that?
Yeah, the annotations with Go client.
Oh, yeah. So I recently added annotations to Go client. So now Go client supports the annotation, but CLI doesn't still have support for the annotations. So we have added support in Whisk deploy in managed mode to add annotations to rules as well. So all the OpenWhisk entities gets annotated now.
Okay.
Do you have
So
plans
I
for
think
running the CLI repo?
Yeah, the CLI.
Okay. The CLI, not Whisk deploy.
Well, it was a backwards discovery process. We found out it wasn't supported in Go client. Now it's supported. It's got to get passed through the service.
Anything that we have to do to enable in the Go CLI, or we get it for free by just pulling the new Go client?
I don't think so. It's coming free. I have to look into it. I think we need changes in CLI.
Okay, we open an issue so we can discuss it.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Okay, with that, we are through our agenda just in time. It's perfect. There's one last point, as always, finding the next moderator for the February 28th, I think. And I have good news with that because Vadim asked me to take over this slot. He offered to take the next one. So if nobody objects, I will ask him to take to the next one. I hear no objections. So then thank you for joining. A lot of good things for our release process and the technical insights. And thank you for joining again. Bye.